Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. An apparent quarrel between two ex-lovers turned deadly this afternoon at a local radio station.
The suspect in custody is the former president of the local chapter of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Our Brian Karam is at Windcrest Police Headquarters now with more on this tragic story. Brian.
Lori, Allen, apparently what happened is late this afternoon, a man walked into the Magic 105 offices and caught 26-year-old Janet Tebbs as she was leaving work, argued with her, then took her into the bathroom and shot her once in the throat with a .22 caliber handgun. Now, police say it was the culmination to a 3-month-old ongoing feud. 47-year-old Bill Mixon, former MAD president, was arrested late this afternoon and has been charged with a murder in front of the Magic 105 offices. Police say he had harassed Tebbs off and on for several weeks. You're seeing her body being carried into the ambulance now. After shooting Tebbs, Mixon allegedly walked upstairs into the offices, handed a handgun over to the police, and then handed the handgun over to station personnel and then called police. Tebbs' parents were stunned by this today. It was the loss of their only daughter, and the radio account executive leaves behind her 2 children, both ages 3 and 6 years old. With me now live is the chief of the Windcrest Police Force, Cliff Grumbles. Chief, I understand the investigation is ongoing. Can you tell me a little bit about what led up to this act of violence this afternoon?
Okay, well, some of the victim's co-workers tell us that the victim told them that she had broken off the relationship with the suspect some 3 months ago. However, the suspect had continued to call her and make harassing phone calls to her and threaten her as well as her parents. There were some incidents where some tires were slashed, and the victim believed that the suspect that we have was involved in those. And
let me ask you this. At this point, I do understand, like I said earlier, the investigation is ongoing. Do you anticipate any more charges out of this? And can you tell me a little bit, was a weapon registered to him, or do you all know at this point?
As the investigation is continuing this time, and the suspect that we have will be charged with murder.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's about it. Alan Laurie, as we told you before, he has been arrested, 47-year-old former president of MAD. Alan Laurie.
All right, Brian Karam, thank you very much. Of course, this is not the first time that the name Bill Mixon has been linked to controversy. Mixon was terminated as president of the local MAD chapter by the national organization just over a month ago. Now, you see him in these pictures telling local MAD members about his ouster and the closing of the chapter's doors. Mixon blamed the move on politics, but others said it stemmed from sexual harassment charges against him. Mixon denied those allegations, and he vowed to start another group called RID, which stands for Remove Intoxicated Drivers. Now, the national president of MAD tonight has asked that Janet Tebbs be recognized for her contributions to the MAD organization. She was a very active member, especially the candlelight vigil back in December, for which she wrote and sang a touching song. The only statement that Al Wells, the president of the National MAD organization, would issue about Bill Mixon tonight was this: he has not been associated with the organization since April 28, 1988.
And another shooting late this evening.
Eyewitness News, San Antonio's top-rated satellite newscast.
Good evening. A local radio station was a scene of horror today as an employee of Magic 105 FM was gunned down.
And tonight, 47-year-old Bill Mixon, a well-known San Antonian, is charged with shooting 26-year-old Janet Tebbs to death in a downstairs restroom. As Larry Meyer explains, Mixon sat quietly waiting for police after the shooting.
Police say 47-year-old Bill Mixon, a former president of San Antonio's Mothers Against Drunk Driving, had made threats against 26-year-old account executive Janet Tebbs after they broke up 3 months ago. Mixon allegedly showed up at radio station KSMG armed with a .22 caliber revolver just as Tebbs was coming down from the station's 5th-floor studios.
She tried to get away from the suspect, who followed her then at that point and into the women's restroom there on the 1st floor of the building where the shooting occurred.
Witnesses reported hearing only one shot after several loud screams. Investigators say Tebbs was shot once in the throat. Mixon then reportedly calmly walked into the Magic 105 offices and gave himself up.
He sat down in the lobby there and asked the receptionist to call the police.
Mixon was arrested a short time later and charged with 1 count of first-degree murder. He and Tebbs were both involved in the San Antonio MAD chapter. Police say Tebbs had some run-ins with Mixon before. Just yesterday, he allegedly slashed her tires. Today, she was walking out of the radio station when she saw him again. Tebbs's friends and co-workers were stunned. They described her as a wonderful and nice person who lived with her parents. Her parents later talked with police to try to sort out what led up to the tragic shooting. In Windcrest, Larry Meyer, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
So just who is this man, Bill Mixon, and what does his past reveal? Pat DeBerry looked into that tonight. She is here to tell us more. Very controversial man.
Yes, he was indeed. As we told you before, Mixon was past president of the San Antonio Mothers Against Drunk Drivers chapter here. This isn't the first time he's been in trouble. Mixon was making headlines just a few weeks ago within the organization. Those close to him say his past problems may have contributed to what happened tonight.
Well, you're always surprised when someone commits or is alleged to commit a murder. I better not touch that one.
Suzanne Hildebrand worked very closely with Bill Mixon in the little over 1 year that he was president of the San Antonio MAD chapter. She was present at a meeting over a month ago when Mixon was previously in hot water. He was defending himself after allegations of sexual harassment had surfaced against him. Mixon adamantly denied the charges at the time.
There's absolutely no substance to these allegations, none whatsoever. I have not done anything in the way of sexual harassment of the secretary that claims it.
Mixon believed the charges were fabricated by MAD higher-ups and were being used only as an excuse to get him ousted. Because Mixon's dismissal also meant the local chapter would subsequently be dissolved, members tended to side with him.
Mr. Mixon was a very controversial man. I personally felt like that his troubles with MAD probably were not quite legitimate. MAD has a bad habit of attacking people when they stand up and challenge their rules.
Mixon was subsequently ousted, but now people like Shirley Hildebrand are wondering if they really even knew Bill Mixon. Many said they always suspected something wasn't quite right, but just couldn't put their finger on it, Jerry.
Anything else coming out about this?
Well, more and more stories are surfacing against him since the shooting incident happened. Of course, those can't be confirmed, and I guess we'll know once the investigation is thoroughly checked out.
All right, thank you, Pat. Just moments ago, we've got some video we want to show you of Bill Mixon leaving the Windcrest Police Department. If we can roll that now. Here you see him, Bill Mixon, looking down this alleged killer right now, possibly a crime of passion. Mixon ran a local swimming pool company. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago when the MAD controversy came up. He did burst into the MAD meeting up in Dallas and try to get in to speak about the San Antonio chapter. Right now, you can see these pictures just taken moments ago as being led down the Bexar County Jail. Mixon looking dazed, a little confused. Obviously, he had no comment for our reporter down there or our cameraman.
Mike Lozano and Paul Alexander. Now, KSAT 12 News tonight.
His work with an anti-drunk driving group may have helped save lives, but tonight, Bill Mixon is accused of taking a life, stalking and killing a former lover inside a local radio station. Good evening. Deborah Daniels has the evening off. Bill Mixon's name has made headlines before in San Antonio as president of the former local chapter of the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. His brother is the county's fire marshal. But tonight, Bill Mixon is making news as a suspected killer of a local radio station account executive, a woman who police say refused his affection and apparently paid with her life. The deadly attack happened late this afternoon at the building housing Magic 105 Radio. Minutes later, our police reporter Mary Walker was on the scene. Here is her report.
Employees at radio station Magic 105 say 26-year-old Janet Tebbs had been harassed all day, threatening phone calls, slashed car tires, all allegedly by this man, 47-year-old William Mixon. Police say this afternoon Mixon went to the radio station's 6th floor offices where Tebbs was an account executive.
With the aid of a fellow employee, she made an attempt to flee from the suspect, but he followed her into the women's restroom where the shooting occurred.
Radio station employees say afterwards Mixon returned to the 6th floor studios, told them what he had done, and asked that they call police.
He was in the lobby of the radio station.
And he offered no resistance?
None whatsoever.
Meanwhile, the dead woman's parents were escorted from Windcrest Police Headquarters tonight, along with members from their church. Officials say Tebbs was their only child. She lived with her parents and her 2 small children. The man accused of shooting her has been charged tonight with murder. Mary Walker, KSAT 12 News Tonight.
For the second time in less than 24 hours, a suspected drug deal has led to violence. This time it was on
Sunday.
Mommy! Now, KSAT 12 News at noon.
As friends and family grieve for a local murder victim, investigators are trying to find out why she was killed. Good afternoon.
The former president of the local chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Driving remains in jail this noon, charged with murder. Bill Mixon allegedly killed his 26-year-old ex-girlfriend as she cowered in a bathroom at radio station Magic 105. He then reportedly went up to the station's office and told the receptionist to call the police. Windcrest police are talking to a number of witnesses today. Besides the couple's prior relationship, they are asking questions about alleged harassment. Mixon was recently ousted as local MAD president after being accused of sexual harassment, and there are some who claim he was also harassing murder victim Jana Tebbs after she sought to end their relationship. Meanwhile, the victim's employer is trying to establish a fund to help her 2 children. She was a single parent.
A 31...
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Police say it was jealousy that led Bill Mixon to kill his 26-year-old former girlfriend.
While the suspect remains in jail, friends and co-workers of Jana Tebbs mourn her passing. As Brian Karam tells us, Jana was more than just an employee at Magic 105.
You were my baby, my only son.
The music is from a candlelight vigil given by Mothers Against Drunk Drivers last Christmas. The singer is Jana Tebbs, described as talented, friendly, and creative. Former MAD President Bill Mixon stands accused of killing her last night with 1 shot through the throat with a .22 caliber handgun. Apparently jealous because she'd broken up with him.
I raised her from 7 up. I brought her up here to San Antonio. She's a beautiful little girl. Very creative.
Folks here at the radio station weren't saying much today. The vice president and general manager Raymond Quinn issued this press release in which he described the shooting as a tragic loss. A sentiment echoed by Windcrest police, who are still investigating the case. They are exploring in greater detail the motive and the business dealings of Mixon. The family is making preparations for burial.
I don't have anything I admire for nobody. It's like, she ain't coming back. I don't have any animosity for I don't have any.
Brian Karam, News 4, San Antonio.
Jana Tebbs' funeral will be Saturday at 11 a.m. at Sunset Funeral Home on Austin Highway. KSMG radio station is also putting together a memorial fund to help take care of Tebbs' 2 sons. Their ages 3 and 6. You can contact the radio station if you want to contribute.
In front of an east side. For investigators, it was a day of searching for answers in the bizarre murder that police say was planned and carried out by the former president of San Antonio's Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. This afternoon, 47-year-old Bill Mixon remains in jail on more than $100,000 bond, charged with that murder. After the murder, police said the killing was the act of a jilted lover, revenge against the woman who'd left him for another man. But now police are investigating a new motive. That and more from Police Beat reporter Mary Walker, who's been following that murder investigation.
Her family wasn't alone in their sorrow. 26-year-old Jana Tebbs had apparently touched the hearts of many in her short life. Radio station officials where she worked as an account executive today remembered her positive attitude and genuine desire to help others. The National Mothers Against Drunk Drivers headquarters today also acknowledged her for outstanding contributions in the local chapter. Those who knew of her work with MAD say it was her voice heard singing at a candlelight vigil for the organization last December. She was recognized for her work on the vigil and on the group's Red Ribbon projects. She had served as chapter vice president. The man who served as president of the organization remains behind bars tonight, charged with her murder. 47-year-old Bill Mixon allegedly walked into this radio station yesterday, followed Tebbs into a ladies' room as she reportedly tried to get away from him. There, officials say she was shot twice, once in the face and once in the chest. Officials say her shooting came after weeks of harassment.
What we've been told is that the victim, within the last 2 to 3 weeks, became very concerned about some of the harassment and some of the threats that were being made. That's the area that we're concentrating on this.
Police Chief Grumble says he is also looking into reports that the woman may have had damaging information about Mixon and his involvement with the MAD organization. He was ousted as president last April amid allegations of sexual harassment. In fact, one man last night indicated the woman was killed to keep her silent.
That, of course, has been a rumor associated with the case, and we'll try to run down any information concerning that. We have no substantiation of that at this point.
Meanwhile, the radio station where Tebbs worked is establishing a fund to assist her family, particularly to help care for the 2 small children she left behind. Mary Walker, KSAT 12 News.
Today would have been his first day on duty at Fort Sam Houston, but instead of...
Warwicked. Mixon reportedly gave himself up after the shooting and was arrested by Windcrest police. Mixon, the former president of the San Antonio chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, has also been charged with criminal mischief. An additional bond of $600 has been set for that crime. Janet Tebbs' co-workers at KSMG, that's Magic 105, has set up a trust fund for her 2 children she leaves behind. Their ages are 3 and 6. You can send donations to the Northwest Bank at the address you see right up there on the screen, 8307 Marbach in San Antonio, or call the number 675-4111 for more information. Meantime, homicide investigators...
This public service announcement graphically demonstrates what Bill Mixon, now accused of taking a life, was committed to preventing: the taking of lives by drunk drivers. An active member of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers since 1984, Mixon eventually became president of the local chapter and the organization's state director. In April, following allegations of sexual harassment, he was ousted from MAD, stripped of his presidency. Once powerful and positive, the move made him bitter.
We thought we were mad. We thought the people out here working in the field were mad. Turns out it's a corporation. It belongs to a small group of people, and they do as they please. And in this case, they pleased to kick me out.
While Mixon struggled to reorganize his followers into a new group, the National MAD organization took him to court. They got an order forcing him to turn over a car and some records. And there is additional litigation pending regarding still more records the national chapter wants. But that will have to wait. Mixon's next visit here, in all likelihood, will not be for a civil matter, nor will it be to monitor DWI cases as he did when he was with MAD. Instead, he'll be here to defend himself against murder charges. Paul Venema, KSAT 12 News.
Undercover police officers...
The young mother of 2 children who was murdered earlier this week was laid to rest today. Family, friends, and co-workers of 26-year-old Jayana Tebbs attended funeral services this morning. Tebbs was killed Wednesday as she was leaving the radio station where she worked. Police have arrested former MAD President Bill Mixon in connection with the shooting. A San Antonio...
And friends of Jana Marie Tebbs. Tebbs, an employee of local radio station Magic 105 FM, was gunned down Wednesday in the building where she was working. Tebbs was buried this morning following a Northside funeral service, but the investigation into her death continues tonight. The former president of the local MAD chapter is charged with her murder. He is in the Bexar County Jail tonight with a bond posted at $100,000.
Examiner should know tomorrow.
Tebbs was shot and killed. Her ex-boyfriend, Bill Mixon, was charged with the murder. Today, the medical examiner confirmed that Tebbs was tested for the AIDS virus. The preliminary test came back positive, but another test must be performed to confirm it. Now, police originally thought that jealousy was the motive for the shooting since Tebbs and Mixon had recently broken up. Mixon is the ex-president of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. He remains in jail tonight. Tebbs was an account executive at KSMG Radio.
He stabbed... Tebbs tested positive for antibodies to the AIDS virus. That may cast a new light on former MAD President Bill Mixon's defense against charges of shooting Tebbs to death last week. Also, Mixon has filed papers in court here saying he had no money for a lawyer, so a public defender has been appointed. Mixon says he's unemployed, though he did landscaping and built swimming pools before his arrest. Mixon is still in Bexar County Jail tonight. And police tonight...
Restraining order. The lawyer to Tebbs' parents filed the order citing state statutes prohibiting the disclosure of AIDS test results. 2 previous AIDS tests conducted earlier this week and released by the medical examiner showed Tebbs carried the deadly virus.
The man convicted
last week had tested positive in a preliminary test taken during her autopsy. But today, the county medical examiner's office got word that a second, more definite test showed that Tebbs did not have the dread disease. A small portion of those tested for AIDS the first time do not actually have the disease, even though they show a positive, a false positive. Richard Bentley, an attorney for Jayanna's parents, said tonight the couple has faced an extraordinary degree of distress since the first results came in and may still consider some legal action over the leaking of those first results, which they feel damaged their daughter's reputation. A San Antonio man remains...
Jayanna Tebbs, the radio executive who was allegedly murdered by her ex-boyfriend last week, have the disease AIDS. Well, today the medical examiner delayed releasing the results of a third AIDS test, which is supposed to answer that question. 2 previous screening tests showed that Tebbs may have had the deadly disease. A third one was ordered and the results were to be released today, but now the ME's office tells us it will be tomorrow before those results are known. Meantime, a man who dated Tebbs after she broke up with former MAD president Bill Mixon says he took an AIDS test and found out today that test was negative. Sheriff's deputies...
The examiner should know tomorrow if Jayanna Tebbs was carrying the AIDS virus when she died. Tebbs was shot and killed a week ago. Her former boyfriend, Bill Mixon, is charged with her murder. Preliminary autopsy results show that Tebbs may have had the AIDS virus, but officials stress they won't know for sure until results from a final test are available. The medical examiner began testing for AIDS in all autopsies a few months ago. It's part of a trial program to keep track of the deadly disease. Medical examiner Vincent DeMaio says so far there have been no confirmed AIDS cases among the general population, but cases involving drug users are increasing.
And last year we knew about 2.5–3% of the drug population was positive for AIDS. This year it's up to 13%, so we know it's spreading in the drug population.
Statistics from the Metropolitan Health District show a lower increase of AIDS cases among IV drug users, but officials still expect about 30 more San Antonians to get AIDS this year compared to last year. The attorney representing accused murderer Bill Mixon wants his client's bond reduced. Mixon has been in Bexar County Jail since the shooting. Her client's bond reduced. Defense attorney Judy Tolis has filed a motion for bond reduction. She thinks her client needs mental treatment since he's been under constant suicide watch at the jail. Still not clear to Tolis whether or not Mixon knew Tebbs may have had an AIDS virus.
At this point in time, the only discussion I've had with my client has been the purpose of retaining me and nothing else. At this point, I cannot make a comment because I don't know whether or not we intend to use that as a defense or whether his mental stability will be a defense.
Mixon's being held on a $100,000 bail. County commissioners...
Final AIDS tests on murder victim Jayanna Tebbs will be released today. An attorney representing the man charged in the murder says the results might play a part in his defense. Bill Mixon, the former head of the local Mothers Against Drunk Drivers here, remains in jail charged with murdering 26-year-old Tebbs. The attorney he hired Tuesday says she'll be in court by the end of the week trying to get his $100,000 bond reduced. Nixon, reportedly an ex-boyfriend of Tebbs, allegedly went to the radio station where she worked and shot her as she tried to leave the building.
The radio station last week had tested positive in a preliminary test taken during her autopsy. But today, the county medical examiner's office got word that a second, more definite test showed that Tebbs did not have the dread disease. A small portion of those tested for AIDS the first time do not actually have the disease, even though they show a positive, a false positive. Richard Bentley, an attorney for Jayanna's parents, said tonight the couple has faced an extraordinary degree of distress since the first results came in and may still consider some legal action over the leaking of those first results, which they feel damaged their daughter's reputation.
The name of a young woman murdered last week has been cleared now. Tests on 26-year-old Jayanna Tebbs indicate she was not exposed to the AIDS virus. The news about Tebbs' final AIDS test results were kept quiet until now due to a restraining order filed by attorney Richard Bentley, who says the results should never have been released in the first place.
It's not accurate because it wasn't conclusive, obviously. And I think that there's been some admonitions to the press and to the people that were receiving the information that it wasn't conclusive. But it was still disseminated.
Judge John Cornyn says a new law prohibits the disclosure of AIDS tests. He granted the order Friday on behalf of the Tebbs family.
A domestic argument.
A tearful plea from the mother of Jayana Tebbs. A San Antonio judge has reduced the bond for Tebbs' accused killer. Bill Mixon, the former local president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, was being held on a $100,000 bond. Although Tebbs' mother says she would be in fear for her life if Mixon was released, Judge David Bercherman reduced Mixon's bond to $50,000. Defense attorneys had asked for the bond to be lowered to $15,000 and say as far as the next step, well, they are just getting started.
I've just begun my investigation just a few days previously. At this point, I have no comment on any possible defense or any motions or anything that we could do. We're still trying to get all the facts together.
Now, Mixon is charged with shooting Tebbs, his former girlfriend, at a local radio station where she worked. The two had just broken up a couple of months ago. A jury is
denied a request by the mother of murder victim Jayana Tebbs. That request was to prohibit the further release of autopsy results of her daughter's death. Doris Thompson is the mother of Tebbs, who was killed at a local radio station last month. The preliminary test results indicated Tebbs might have been infected with the AIDS virus. Those tests turned out to be wrong. A later test revealed she was not an AIDS carrier. Thompson had obtained a temporary restraining order to stop county officials from releasing the results of Tebbs' autopsy, and today she asked visiting Judge Joe Kelly to issue a temporary injunction that would have kept those results private pending further legal action. That request, though, was denied. The former director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Bill Mixon, has been charged with Tebbs' murder. No trial date has yet been set.
The victim has lost a round in court. Doris Thompson, the mother of Jayana Tebbs, who was shot and killed last month at a local radio station. Today, Thompson asked that results of an AIDS test taken on her daughter be withheld from the public, and the judge turned her down. Preliminary test on Tebbs indicated she may have carried the AIDS virus, but a more definite AIDS test proved otherwise. She was not a carrier. Thompson had obtained a temporary restraining order to stop county officials from releasing the results and asked for a permanent injunction. Visiting Judge Joe Kelly said no. Former director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Bill Mixon, is charged with the Tebbs murder, but no trial date has been set. The Bexar County
AIDS tests indicate that a murder victim was not carrying that deadly disease as was originally thought. Jayana Tebbs was gunned down at a local radio station 2 weeks ago. And after the autopsy, the medical examiner said she tested positive for AIDS. Well, now a more conclusive test has been conducted, and it appears the first AIDS tests were inaccurate, and Tebbs was not carrying the AIDS virus. The woman's family tried to prevent the results of the test from being made public. Lawyers
are not happy that a local accused murderer is out of jail tonight. Former Mothers Against Drunk Drivers president Bill Mixon was released from the Bexar County Jail over the weekend after raising enough money for bail. Mixon is charged with the murder of 26-year-old Jayana Tebbs. DA Fred Rodriguez says his office is against Mixon's release because the victim's family is worried they may be harmed.
They feel that he is. I'm in no position to put myself in their shoes, but conveyed to us is their impression that they are scared. And we represent it as much to the court.
Mixon's bond was reduced several weeks ago. No trial date has yet been set. San Antonio.
On Eyewitness News at 6. The most controversial movie of the year opens in local theaters. Some viewers say it's not blasphemous, but just plain boring. The ousted president of the local MAD chapter, who's charged with murder, may be one step closer to going to prison. There's a new development in the case of a president of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers is facing a murder indictment tonight. William Mixon has been indicted by a Bexar County grand jury for the June 15th shooting death of Jayana Tebbs. It happened at KSMG Magic 105. The 47-year-old Mixon had dated Tebbs a few months before the shooting. After it happened, he just sat down and waited for police. Tebbs was shot once in the throat with a .22 caliber revolver.
San Antonio man facing a murder indictment tonight. Bill Mixon is now charged with the June 15th shooting death of 26-year-old Jayana Tebbs, who was gunned down at radio station KSMG, where she worked. 47-year-old Mixon was arrested right after the incident. He was waiting for police when they arrived. Tebbs suffered a single gunshot wound to the throat. Mixon's now indicted. He was arrested for...
From the hill country to the Rio Grande, live from the heart of Texas, this is News 4 San Antonio at 10.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight.